ain't gotta maintain my image in person, cause I am the same guy. I ain't walking in your shoes, but I do stand beside him. Another story on the news, talking about how another cop shot him. What's the world really come?
Talking some shit when you have to. What rallies and dates and events do you have coming up?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for that. So January 8th, we're doing a cow care rally. It's a statewide day of action. The rest of most of the state is doing a car caravan, but we've done several car caravans, and while it's great and it gets people pumped up, most of the people that show up are already in support. And the point of events like this is to not only bring in new people, but having a forum for education. And if you're just driving by honking, there's no chance for anybody to ask questions like the ones that you have that most residents do have. How are we going to pay for it? Because they've been told that so many times by everything else. But they also, because they want to make sure that they're going to get something without it really impacting their already struggling ability to put food on the table. Just got lost. January 8th, Cow Care Rally. So we're doing an informational rally at Constitution Park in Camarillo. So we're going to have a couple speakers, just a little bit of music. It's going to be COVID safe. Make sure everybody's distant. You can gather with your family. Numbers are on the rise. I don't want to be a contributing factor to anybody getting sick. So I am asking that everybody be masked, but there's no vaccination requirement, nothing like that. We either group with your families or whoever you are coming with, and then just to stay safe and respect everybody. But we will have sanitizer when we have things for people to sign. So we're going to have voter registration. I will have my petitions there. If anybody is interested and would love to support me, you can show up there, or I will have links on my website as soon as the petition goes live. You just have to live within the district to sign my petition to get me on the ballot. So at this event, we're going to be talking about the cow care principles that I shared with you today, the funding. We'll have some speakers that will share stories like my personal story, or more policy wonk type stuff to lay out the finances and how we're going to pay for it. Let people ask questions, share their stories if they would like. So that's really big. So January 8th, and then a to be determined fundraiser, hopefully on the 15th, but might get pushed back to the end of January. But those are the biggest things right now. If you are in local Ventura County, December 26th, we are doing a community care event. We'll be making tamales on the 24th, and we'll be taking them out on the 26th to feed some of our unhoused neighbors. If you have any donations of food or clothes that you would like, you can get at me, Daniel for VC, right there at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. That is my social media handle for everything. And I'm in communications with the coordinator for that event, so I could coordinate getting those donations. So you can go to votefordaniel.com for more information, to sign up for the event, RSVP, get more information, see what kind of issues I'm talking about, the things that I'm doing, sign up for our email list, and contribute to our fight for better, because we need more voices of the people in the House where the laws are being made that affect the people.
And I'd like to just say for the record that this man has my official endorsement.
Oh, yeah.
And it comes from a mixture of, you're a bright cookie, you care about the right things, but more importantly, you're open, you want to have that conversation, and you're willing to just chase good ideas wherever they are. And fundamentally nonpartisan, and all those things I value more than what political positions you have at this given moment, because that is more so shows the kind of leader and voice you can be over the long run. Those are the principles that make you into a formidable voice. If you're just like playing the game, so to speak, you're freaking useless to me. I'm like, you're just another cog in the wheel, bro. You're just another useless voice we don't need to listen to.
Absolutely. They're all playing the game. They're all just saying what we want to hear and tap dancing around the issues and refusing to commit, refusing to take a stand, and refusing to fight for what their constituents want. And we've got record numbers of approval across the political spectrum, across generation, across age, sex, gender, race, everything. We've got mass approval for these policies and the spending and the bills that we want passed, and they're just failing us at every level. And so people like us have to step up and get involved. And whether it's running for office or platforming people that are running for office and having these very important conversations, we've got a lot of work to do. And I'm very excited to thank you very much for your official endorsement, but very excited to be in communication and in works with people like you who, like you said, we're largely nonpartisan. I'm fully nonpartisan, and where we're just focused on the policies, the issues, and how we can help all of us have a better life. And that's really what it is at the end of the day.
And speaking of those people we are fighting against that are not serving the will of the people, who is it you're looking to displace, if anyone, in your position? And what number of signatures do you need for your petition? And what number of votes do you need for winning this election?
Wonderful questions. Okay, so I just pulled these up. So I need, typically for state assembly, you would need 1,000 signatures. But because of the redistricting and it pushed the time back, so we've got a shorter time span to collect signatures. I think it's usually closer to 2 months. But we've got from January 3rd to February 9th to collect. It would typically be 1,000 signatures, but it's been reduced to 679. So that's super exciting. So I'm shooting for still getting 1,000 to make sure that, if anything gets thrown out, I still got the number that I need there to win, or to get on the ballot. For anybody out there that's listening that wants to get involved in California politics, but you don't want to jump in bed with either of the parties, you kind of want to do your own thing, you have a different voice, a different agenda, know that you can run nonpartisan. California has an open primary system where all you need to get on the ballot is your signatures. So as long as your community supports you, you do not need a D or an R next to your name to get on the ballot. And then we have a jungle primary where top 2 go to the general. So you do not need to submit, subject, and sell your soul to something that you do not believe in. If you believe in, fine, go run as a Democrat, no harm, no foul. But just know that there's different options for you out there. You do not have to be pigeonholed into pick a side. I chose the people. That's my side. So that's just something interesting for California. So yeah, so I need 680 signatures to get on the ballot. As far as votes, for the March primary of last year, so the numbers are kind of hard to gauge because 2020 blew up everything. We had 80% voter turnout in our county. It's the record. We've never had that many nor that highest percentage of people participate. And we also hit our record for voter registration as well. It jumped 30,000 in 6 months from March to November. So I'm going to give you the 2020 numbers, and some people have told me to average them out and water them down, but I actually am going to keep these numbers and shoot high. And that way, if we do have a typical low midterm turnout and I'm able to win with less votes, then cool. But I don't want to sell myself short and not make enough. So in March of 2020, to get through the primary, I will need at least 20,000 votes. The top 2 vote getters both got 21,000. With a split of about 400. It was a Democrat and a Republican, which typically happens, but it doesn't have to happen that way. So in the primary, they got 21,000. So I'm going to shoot for at least 25 or 30,000, make sure I get in like Flynn. And then, for the general, they got, the winner got 79,000 votes, for a total of 123,000 participating of the county. Now, the district lines are changing. I think that so there's 2 things. The incumbent in California, when we're redistricting, actually in all states, when you're redistricting, there is no incumbents. So that's fantastic. However, the person who currently represents half of this district and lives in the new district with me, his name is Steve Bennett. He was a Ventura County Board of Supervisors, the supervisor for the last 20 years. He just got elected to the state assembly last year. So while he doesn't have a long track record with the state assembly, he's got a very long track record of being a representative for our community and not really doing a great job of getting the job done. As far as, when he first ran in the city council in the 90s, he took a hard stand on campaign finance reform. He would only accept $100. That wasn't a law. He just did that himself. Once he got on the city council, he got a city ordinance passed that you could only, anybody running for city council could only take $100. A few years later, that was overturned by a state legislation that was put out, and so that was null and void. But that was in the 90s, and so that's great. And so when I first started doing research on him, I'm not going to lie, I was like, oh, we're going to be on the same side on a lot of things. And while in practice or in statement that is the case, since there's been a huge swing where he's taking $9,000 a pop from different organizations, from Anheuser-Busch, from there's only actually a few healthcare. So, that's actually good, but he does still take money from healthcare. When we invited him to our CalCare rallies that we held at the beginning of the year, he refused to show up. And that's been my biggest problem that I've seen is that inability to take a stand. There was 2 recent pieces of legislation in the State House, SB 8 and SB 9, that he just refused to vote for. I don't know.
Did he not show up, or he just said
no, he was there. Just refused to vote. So we need politicians.
Somewhere along the way, he gave up his principles when it comes to the $100 rule, and that is evidence of him just becoming a what I call a slot holder politician, which is basically the main way we will attack these anti-populist, the people sellouts, is by pointing out that they literally just wait for, in this case, the leaders of the state assembly here in California to tell them how to vote, and just go along with it and milk the system, and it's a job to them.
Absolutely.
It's not public service, and so
absolutely, they just maintain
that is a tale as old as time. Guys getting in and maybe even having, like you said, good ideas in the beginning, but somewhere along the way, he just said, "I'm a system animal, and that's what it is." And that's unfortunate, but that's why you're here.
It is, and it's just this maintain the status quo. It's just to go along to get along. And max out your term limits. That's you run for as long as you can until you can't run anymore, and then you're forced to go do something else. So I feel very strongly that he's had 20 years to represent Ventura and didn't do a good enough job. So why are we continuing to promote and reelect these people when they haven't been on the front lines fighting for the people? Ventura has record homelessness numbers. We have unhoused, unemployed, food lines still, blowing up around the corners. Food share was supposed to shut down in our county 6 months ago and continues to get extended because the need is still there. Our legislators, our community leaders are not doing enough to make sure that our community is no longer food insecure to where this outside entity has to continue coming in to feed our community, because they've accepted that this just is how it is. Some people are just going to be homeless. Some people just don't have enough food to eat. I'm just going to go about my day. And that's just unacceptable. And that's why we need to continue doing these protests, doing these rallies, organizing, agitating, activating. I love seeing the Sunrise activists at Joe Manchin's yacht. I think those are the types of things we need to do. If we can't be comfortable in our home, if we can't afford to eat and sit down and have a meal, then they shouldn't be comfortable to do so either. And we are not going to affect change unless we make them feel the pressure. So we need to not only get involved, but we also need to continue agitating out in the streets. I am not an absolutist in the sense that we only need to vote. That's our only solution. Nor do I feel that voting doesn't matter and we only need to go to streets organizing. I think we need to do both. We need to keep the pressure on in the streets. And then, like what I plan to do in May before the primary is June 7th, 2022 here in California. So for the entire month of May, we're going to be doing a Get Out the Vote, where we're going to be holding rallies and information sessions in every city. And we're going to have a little conga line or something where we march to the actual outside ballot box where they can put it in, or we can meet up and drive people to their polling places. But so absolutely be out in your communities, be active, organize, agitate, get people to join unions, but then we need to hold these unions accountable. We need to make sure that we have a voice. We need to make sure that we continue to have a seat at the table so that we're not left behind. But so go out and vote in every election, all the elections you can. I'm working with several groups trying to encourage them to put out more voter guides, because there aren't voter guides that are put out in Spanish here, and we have almost a 50% Spanish-speaking population. So we need to just make all of this information and all of these things available and accessible. And we do that by getting out in the streets, informing our neighbors, informing our community of their options, their resources, and how we can help them and how they can help themselves with things that they didn't even know were already there to help them.
Awesome. Well, we'll end it with a little bit of talk about what I'm wanting to do with my political future, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sure.
The recall election and that failing by a large margin, made me reassess whether or not I wanted to a little bit of talk about what I'm wanting to do with my political future, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sure.
The recall election and that failing by a large margin made me reassess whether or not I wanted to stay in California. It's not that any one particular issue was severe enough to be like, this is the final breaking point, but it was the idea that a guy who I respected a lot, who was brilliant and who I thought was really coming to bring positive change to California, he would have solved our high housing cost issue, because he would have blown through all the red tape and everything that's been keeping our housing from being able to be produced highly enough. He definitely, was in the minority and is a solid, no compromises made conservative. So he was not welcome necessarily here in California, but it made me realize that this state will be run by certain principles and have certain realities and have issues like, I think, high crime, high cost of living and things like that for a long time. And I don't want to shortchange my own life or my own future or my family by forcing them to be here. And so me and my girlfriend had conversations and we talked, and in about 6 months or so, we want to go to Oklahoma. That's the plan, to be with her family out there. And so unless some financial situation changes for me here, where I could somehow bring family out from there back, here to California, make it worthwhile. And there are some things at play that might make that workable in the next few months, but they're, all long shots. I'm just a blue collar normal person. And so unless something crazy happens, I'll be working my petitioning job and saving my money, and then I'll go and set up operations in Oklahoma, and then eventually return and do what I can. I want to see California definitely go around and become for the better and be a great place to live, low crime, beauty, bring back the beauty of California. We're old. We need a paint job.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to. I moved back to California in January of 2020 to fight and to make something happen. So it's not something I walk away from lightly, but it's also something I know I can still affect change here and be a part of conversations and organizing and financing of solutions and all that kind of stuff, regardless of whether or not I'm actually here. But yeah, it's unfortunate. It's disappointing, I know, to many people who are here in California that would have liked to have seen me do something here. But that is the decision I've come to. Okay. And so, yeah, so I'll be doing that. That's what my political future looks like right now. It's basically put on pause. But I definitely, outside of running myself, still want to be fully engaged in everything. And yeah.
No, that's awesome. And, just because whatever you would want it to do, just because it's not happening right now, doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And, maybe there's some awesome stuff that you're going to learn, or some experience you're going to gain, or some connections you're going to make in Oklahoma that, make your comeback here even better or stronger, or give you a different insight. So I think that's fantastic. Go where heart's taking you right now. Go where, you need to be to do what you need to do to take care of your family. I would just say definitely keep in touch. And, I'll love to, I'm sure you have a couple ways that you'll keep your finger on the pulse of California, ongoings, but definitely keep in touch and stay involved and stay connected with me, and love to work with you in whatever capacity across state lines. And then when you come back, if I'm a sitting assembly member, definitely let's talk. Let's make some shit happen. So I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely, I want to have a long ongoing political professional relationship with you, because I think we could do a lot of cool things together, and having someone on the other side of the aisle, when it comes to the unconscious signals, so to speak, like you're friends and at home amongst a bunch of progressives pretty comfortably. Not that you wouldn't be friendly or whatever with conservatives, but you're definitely, there. And I know I'm for sure, like, when I'm around a bunch of conservatives, we're all like, yeah, we're getting along, and I get along with everybody, but there's definitely different, more subtle and smaller sort of cues and everything. But anyways, so it's great to have a relationship and a professional relationship like we have that can help maintain a bond across the aisle, because we need as many of those as we can have. And so
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to everything we can do together, and I want to be, I want to help your campaign in whichever ways I can, not just through this platform, but actually, like, I want to get, boots on the ground and be participating. The fact that I have this skill set with the petitioning means I can definitely render my services and help you in certain areas. So we'll figure out more about that. There's a guy named Kevin Vibing on TikTok, who's just a guy. He's a door dasher, I think, in Southern California somewhere, who's a progressive, and he's just a really awesome guy. He's always doing community fundraising for people, like a single mom that has kids that has to help cover her medication costs, or other sorts of things like that. He's very involved. I want to connect you two because I think you guys would just get along and have all the common interests. Basically, the whole list, that whole poster behind him. He's like, I'm down. Yeah. And I'm a communist. So, and it is one of those. He's like, I'm a communist because I care about people, but he's not like, Marx said in 1872. He's not one of those guys. And I think I understand why the connotations with communism are nothing like the connotations with Nazism, but because of my historical and my intellectual position and understanding, I have a hard time swallowing anyone that wants to call themselves a communist, because I'm like, bruh, what's been what that team has done, right? But I get the conversation about the principles underlying socialized society and de-commoditizing or de-risking or capitalizing or capitalismizing various aspects. Like I'm all for that. I see the gray areas and the compromises and the non-extremist version of those policies that can be brought to bear for the good. So, but it definitely, I hate the word. I hate commies. I hate the name. I hate Nazis. I hate commies, and it's hard for me to really. It's like one is definitely a different flavor of evil that's worse and tastes worse in your mouth, but. Anywho, but it deserves to not be treated the same. But that was just a long rant because I have a friend who's commie posting here on Instagram.
Oh, that's okay.
Not here, but who's commie posting on Instagram, and we've gone back and forth and just have had a rough time of it because of that name and because of my unwillingness to withhold my opinions about that name and what I think it means to take on that title. We've had some rough conversation, but and out in the open, so I'm not saying anything anyone doesn't know. But I still my heart's in the right place, but for some reason that name just irks me.
Well, I think that our need to both as the left and as the right that gets upset about it, the need to use the term or be upset about the term. I think we just I think all the ists, socialists, communists, all of these ists, it doesn't. That's why I'm not running as a socialist or as an anything but a nonpartisan, because it's the partisanship that's the problem. But these needs to either force someone into, oh, you like this, so you must be a socialist, or you like this, so you must be a communist, or well, I believe in this and I don't want that, so I'm a communist, so I want to do this without like you're talking about, without not taking any of the historical context into it and just reading, maybe the base principles or whatever, but not taking the historical context or the actual actions that were taken. I think that all of that is problematic, and we need to just, there can be good social policies without needing to adhere to an ideology.
Yeah.
I think that's where we get lost, is this hung up on, I'm a this and I'm a that, or you're a this. Do we all want food and a place to live and a job? Cool, let's work towards that. We all need the same basic things to live. Whatever you enjoy doing when you go home, what you read, who you talk to, what you do, fine. But we all need the same basic things to survive, and we can all agree on at least those basic things. So let's work together. And, it's interesting in my call time and in my interactions with people. It's more the older generation that will ask me, what are you? And for a variety of reasons, are you a Democrat or a Republican? Where do you stand on this? What are you on this? Or Democrat or Republican? Or are you a socialist? And But when I'm talking to the younger generation, people like you and I, instead of that, it's because like in this live stream, I didn't even think to say that I was nonpartisan because number one, you know that, and then that's just we're talking about the issues, right? So when I call somebody from our generation and they pick up the phone, 9 times out of 10, it's what are your top 3 policies? Not what party are you in? What are you doing? What do you want to seek? You know, what are your end goals? And I think that that's why. It's not always a generational thing because there are several, many people in my life and across the country that are would be classified as a boomer or in the older generation that wants to see the same things that we do. But I think that that's why we see more communication and collaboration at the younger sectors of our current population, because we're seeing all of this fighting for decades and decades and decades from World War II, Vietnam, Korea, right into the Cold War, right into the War on Terror. Like it's been partisan our entire existence, whether it's us against terrorists, us against communists, us against Democrats, us against Republicans. It's just a us versus they. Instead of that, it's because like in this live stream, I didn't even think to say that I was nonpartisan because number one, you know that, and then that's just we're talking about the issues, right? So when I call somebody from our generation and they pick up the phone, 9 times out of 10, it's what are your top 3 policies? Not what party are you in? What are you doing? What do you want to seek? What are your end goals? And I think that that's why it's not always a generational thing because there are several, many people in my life and across the country that are would be classified as a boomer or in the older generation that wants to see the same things that we do. But I think that that's why we see more communication and collaboration at the younger sectors of our current population, because we're seeing all of this fighting for decades and decades and decades from World War II, Vietnam, Korea, right into the Cold War, right into the War on Terror. Like it's been partisan our entire existence, whether it's us against terrorists, us against communists, us against Democrats, us against Republicans. It's just a us versus them always. And we're starting to look around and go, just like I said, like, hey, you want a better job? Hey, you want benefits too? Yeah, let's go get that. I don't care if you're red. I don't care if you're blue. I don't care what the hell you ascribe to. Are you fighting for the people? Do you want to see good for our society? Are you not out raping and pillaging? Like, are you a good person with good, not harming other people values that wants to see all of us succeed and happy? Then we can talk. We don't have to agree on everything. I want everybody to get away from this. We do not have to agree on everything, whether it's the policy, the position, the goal, our tactic, whatever, until we come to the table and sit down and talk about it. Because like you and I, we've had so many things where we each had like a nugget of an idea, and then boom, it like turns into this amazing thing where if I had just looked at you and said, you're a libertarian, I'm not going to talk to you, or you're this, or I'm a this, or then we couldn't have had those ideas. We couldn't have reached the next stage and the next level, because it takes all of us coming together. And people like us, and are more likely in our generation, aren't so hung up and caught up on those labels. And I think, and this is why it's causing you such grief, because we're so not caught up on those labels. So many people are now willing to say, I'm a communist, I'm a socialist, I'm a this, I'm an anarchist. I'm like, you're an anarchist, but you take the bus. Like,
well, it's also like,
okay, it's not that simple either.
Well, but those are two great examples, because these are the poles that are forming in America right now. Far right wingers, or not far right in the ideological sense, even though it's a weird term to call someone far right, but in the way I mean it is in the academic intellectual sense. They're an anarcho-capitalist, anarchist type of person. And with the communists, it's like, look where it's come close to being tried, and tell me if you want any of that. Nigeria right now is an anarchist society. There's no non-corrupt, non-bought out, or even well-funded or well-organized government there. It's mostly a shit show. That's what anarchy looks like, is crappy warlords fighting over who gets to be the gang leader of this particular little area. That's what anarchy really looks like.
Right.
It's not, because you need military, roads, courts to legalize or to enforce legalized contracts, and someone saying, if I hurt you, they're going to show up and take us away and take away our life, in the sense of jailing you. You no longer have choices. And then on the other side, it's like, you can't give government that much absolute control over life and not expect humans that love to flex their power to not do that and have horrible consequences. So, and look where it's come close to being actually tried, and look at what happened, and that should be, enough evidence for you. I did want to say, though, on the generational gap you talked about, and I know I hopped around a lot. I'll let you fully respond, but the generational gap you talked about, I actually think has nothing to do with our generation in the sense of we're intrinsically special. I think it's the internet, which has allowed us to look at everything anew and fresh and have a different information analysis. And then also, we've had 20 years of escalating failed administrations at the national level. Clinton was awesome. Both sides agree. Bush, both sides hate, actually, especially now that the Trump era has happened and a bunch of Republicans could look back and feel like they had an excuse to shit on Bush because he wasn't there and their boy right now. They could look back and have better. So there's a lot of anti-Bush Republicans, a lot of anti-Obama Democrats because he kept bombing, kept doing a bunch of messed up stuff, and he did not produce any fruits of the promises that were made. And he made some big promises. Obama is an amazing speaker, but he knows how to speak in great terms. And when you don't deliver in great terms, it's not going to work out. Right. And then you have the weird years of, and a bunch of people that are 24 years and younger have basically only known the Clinton-Trump election and the Trump-Biden election. So that is like, the old system's not working. Even if you like Trump or Biden for some of the good that they've done, that's not the choices we should have. And that base level recognition of failure makes us on this generation be like, so what's going on? you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Be like, we're not going to play that game.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. That's a great point to make. Because no, it's not because we're intrinsically special. It's because of the shit we've been through and everything we've watched. We are the school shooting generation. We are the forever war generation. We are the 2 economic collapses in our lifetime generation, right? So it's the way we are. The points that I was the distinctions that I was drawing is out of necessity, and it's a direct consequence of 20 years plus of failed administration and beyond. So no, I absolutely agree with you. We are the first generation to be, and they said this about Generation X. No, we are the true first generation to be worse off than the former. We can't afford to buy a house. We are terrified to have a family. We are saddled with more student debt than any generation in American history, with zero prospects. You know, every generation before us at this age had a family, had cars, had houses, right? And could do so on one salary. And that's why these assholes that are still in Congress that could do that don't think we need to raise the minimum wage because they could afford to survive off of one income. We haven't been able to do that since at least the Cold War. I mean, at least really,
I heard a stat the other day and it blew my mind. The percentage of money of your income that Americans spend on their housing was greater in 2000 than in 1900. How is that possible? Other than the system is designed to make us poor debt slaves and keep the power in power.
Yeah. And that's why BlackRock is buying up entire neighborhoods right now to turn us into a permanent renter class. And that we definitely need to brainstorm on how to make sure that cannot continue. I can't do anything nationally now, but we can definitely make sure that they do not buy up all of the real estate in California where we already don't have enough. If we get priced out by this corporation that can show up with suitcases full of cash and buy a house and go to closing within 72 hours of it being on the market, people like you and I don't stand a chance. We don't. And I've already spent over $200,000 in rents in my life. Just in the last decade, I've spent over $200,000. I've half bought my landlord's house. But because I have to pay so much, I can't afford to put anything away to put a down payment on my own. And the cost keeps going up and our wages aren't. So, you know, it's going to get to and I've got a good landlord. He's not extorting me, but he has to there's a certain level of increase that has to happen, just like I was talking about.
Yeah, I never ever want to blame people like even a Jeff Bezos or people that are in positions of power. Like, just because you're the most successful person in the game doesn't mean you have to be a part of the game as well. Like, it's the game that produces these issues. It's not the individual. So, like, I don't care about any landlord. I've literally said myself, I'd love to buy a house, buy a few houses, rent it out, have a retirement plan. Everyone likes that. It's just a question of systemically, we're all being shoved in that direction and they're putting their boot on our neck. And that is not okay. That part of it's not okay. Having a landlord exist is fine. But we have to be able to have a choice, a reasonable choice, you know?
Right. Because what it used to be is you would rent a place for a few years, put some money away, and then it was a stepping stone. They're trying to keep us here, and that's the problem. And just like you and I talked about before, there's nothing wrong with somebody starting a business, making a living, inventing something, and getting money off of it, or producing a service for somebody. Not everybody wants to or can afford to buy a house. There is a need for rentals and apartments. So you are, as a landlord, providing a service. That's fine. And you should be able to make a living off of that and earn some money, put away a retirement for yourself. It's when it becomes exploitative. It's when it becomes not optional, where you are trapped in a situation that you can never get out of and exploited to where you are like, they raise the rent as much as they can every year so that they can price you out as fast as possible to get somebody else in there. Like, those are the kinds of problems that we have. So it's not about landlords themselves, like you're talking about. It's the system and people that will take advantage of it without the safeguards put in place to protect the people.
Interest of everyday Americans.
Right. Absolutely. It's not about regulating a corporation so much that they can't exist. It's about regulating a corporation just enough that it doesn't destroy the people it's trying to serve.
Yep. Well, that was awesome. That's a great place to stop it. And thank you so much for coming on. This has been great. And I look forward to the next one. And we'll definitely coordinate. I'll link you up with that Kevin guy, and we'll make stuff happen.
Absolutely. Jordan, always a pleasure. You have a great night, man. We'll talk soon.
You too. Peace.
Bye.
Feel like I've been in a new mind state lately, but still in the same route. Always looking for a move. Let's get to the money, see what we can bang out.